I'll never forget the first time I caught her red-handed. It was 6 in the morning. The sun hadn't even made it past the rooftops yet, and there she was, our neighborhood's self-appointed Queen Bee, marching down the sidewalk like she owned every blade of grass in sight. In one swift, deliberate move, she shoved my trash can onto its side, letting half a week's worth of garbage spill right into the street. Then she just kept walking, like it was nothing. Like my life, my home, my peace of mind meant absolutely zero to her. Now, if this had been some accident, I could have let it slide. Maybe the wind, maybe a raccoon, but no. This was different. This was personal. And the worst part, she made eye contact with me while doing it. Smiled even. A smug, tight little grin that said, "You won't do a thing." That was the day I realized I wasn't just dealing with a nosy neighbor. I was dealing with Karen, the HOA enforcer who wasn't even on the board anymore but still strutted around like she made the rules. The kind of person who lived for writing complaints in all caps, who believed property lines were just suggestions, and who thought intimidation was her God-given hobby. At first I tried ignoring it, picked up the can, cleaned up the mess, shook my head and went on with my day. But then it happened again. And again. Sometimes in broad daylight. Sometimes in the middle of the night when she thought no one was watching. It wasn't just my trash can either. She started calling in fake HOA violations, claimed my lawn was half an inch too long, said my Christmas lights were obnoxiously bright. Once she even left a note saying my front door color was too aggressive for the community aesthetic. It wasn't even red. It was gray. Just plain gray. But the trash can, that was her favorite weapon. She wanted me to feel humiliated. Wanted the whole neighborhood to see my garbage, scattered across the curb every week like clockwork. She wanted me to snap, to lose it so she could finally say, "See, I told you he doesn't belong here." What she didn't realize was I was already planning my move. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to call the cops. I wasn't going to beg the HOA to step in because, frankly, they were terrified of her too. No, I had something else in mind. Something she wouldn't see coming. Something that would flip her smug little grin into a look she'd never forget. And it all started with a single, unassuming trash can. You ever notice how the smallest thing can eat away at you until it's not small anymore? That's what the trash can became for me. Not just a container for garbage. It was a target. A message. Every time I walked outside and saw it tipped over guts, spilled out across the pavement, I felt my blood boil. And I'll be honest, at first she was winning. One Thursday morning, I stepped out to head to work and found my trash bag ripped wide open. Coffee grounds smeared across the driveway, banana peels stuck to the tires of my truck. Neighbors walked by, pretending not to stare, but I could feel their eyes. Karen, she was standing on her porch in her robe, sipping coffee, watching me clean up like it was some kind of show she bought tickets to. I wanted to storm over right then. Wanted to ask what kind of grown adult gets their kicks from tipping over garbage cans. But I didn't. I just smiled, waved, and stored that moment in the back of my mind. Because deep down I knew the longer I played it cool, the bigger her guard would drop. That weekend I went shopping. Not for groceries. Not for a lawnmower. For something special. I wanted a trash can that wasn't just a trash can. Something heavy-duty. Something smart. Something that would turn her petty little game into a trap. I found it. A reinforced container with built-in motion sensors. The kind contractors use on construction sites to keep raccoons and stray dogs out. But here's the best part. The lid didn't just lock. It had a custom alarm feature. One touch and the second someone tampered with it, bam! A siren blared. Loud. Embarrassingly loud. The kind of noise that makes heads turn, curtains twitch, and neighbors come running. But I wasn't done. I added my own twist. A little Wi-Fi camera. Discreetly tucked inside the lid, angled perfectly at street level. Every shove, every smirk, every ounce of her sabotage, recorded. No excuses. No oops, must have been the wind. The first night I set it out, my heart was racing. Not gonna lie, I barely slept. I left the window cracked, waiting, listening. Midnight came. 1 a.m. passed. Then around 2 I heard it. The hollow scrape of plastic dragging against concrete, a familiar sound by now. And then, exactly as planned, my trap sprang to life. The neighborhood was about to hear a noise they'd never forget. The sound that ripped through the neighborhood that night was glorious. A shrieking alarm louder, then a car horn echoing down the cul-de-sac like a police siren. Lights flicked on in every house. Curtains yanked open. Dogs started barking like crazy. And right there, center stage, was Karen, frozen in her robe, one hand still gripping the side of my trash can. She wasn't prepared. Not for the noise. Not for the floodlights. I'd hooked to a motion sensor that blasted her in pure white glare like she'd just been caught in a prison break. Her smug little smirk vanished instantly. She looked like a deer in headlights. Literally. Neighbors poured out onto their porches, rubbing their eyes, clutching their phones, whispering to each other. What's going on? Is that Karen? Why's she messing with his trash can? Every second the siren screamed and Karen scrambled, like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She tugged at the can, tried to drag it upright, then shoved it back down. When she realized everyone was watching, that's when she spotted the camera. Oh yeah, I made sure it had a little red light blinking just enough to let her know. This wasn't just about sound. This was evidence. Proof. She spun around wild-eyed, shouting over the noise. This is harassment! He's harassing me. But no one was buying it, because she wasn't the one under attack. She was the one caught red-handed. And me? I stepped right out my front door, coffee mug in hand, calm as ever. I didn't yell, didn't gloat, just walked up to the can, tapped the control on my phone, and the alarm cut off instantly. Silence fell over the street except for the murmurs of neighbors who'd seen everything. Karen tried to regain her composure, clutching her robe tighter. This is against HOA rules, she snapped, her voice trembling. You can't have surveillance equipment like this. I just raised an eyebrow. Funny. Pretty sure the HOA handbook doesn't say anything about protecting your own property. But if you want, we can always bring this up at the next meeting. Her face went pale, because she knew as well as I did. Once the video got around, her reputation as the queen of the HOA was finished. She stormed off, muttering threats, slamming her front door. So hard it rattled the windows, but the damage was done. For the first time, the neighborhood had seen her for what she really was. And I knew this was only the beginning, because Karen wasn't going to take this humiliation, lying down. No, she was going to strike back, and I was ready for it. If there's one thing you should know about Karen, it's that she doesn't lose quietly. The morning after her little trash can concert, I thought maybe, just maybe she'd back off, but no. By sunrise, she was already making her next move. I opened my front door to grab the paper, and there it was, an official-looking letter stuffed under my doormat. Chore letterhead, bold font. A violation notice. Unauthorized security system in violation of community guidelines. Penalty, $250 fine. I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was so obvious. Karen wasn't even on the HOA board anymore, but she still had friends. People she'd manipulated for years. People too scared to tell her no. She must have called them in a frenzy the second she stormed inside. And now, they were her weapons. But here's the thing. I'd already done my homework. I knew the handbook cover to cover. And guess what? Homeowners are explicitly allowed to install security measures to protect their property. The alarm, the lights, the camera, it was all within my rights. The fine was nothing more than intimidation on paper. Still, she didn't stop there. Oh no, Karen was on a warpath. By the end of the week, I had 3 more violations. 1 for leaving my recycling bin visible from the street. 1 for having improper landscaping. And my favorite, failure to maintain harmonious exterior decor. Whatever that means. It became a pattern. Every day a new letter. Every day a new petty attack. She even cornered neighbors demanding they sign a petition to have me removed from the community. Most of them just nodded politely and shut the door in her face. But a few were scared enough to go along with her. It was clear Karen was escalating. She wasn't just mad about the trash can anymore. She wanted me gone, evicted, humiliated. But here's the mistake she made. She underestimated me. Because while she was busy writing fake violations and parading around the neighborhood like some dictator, I was building my case. I kept every letter, recorded every interaction, saved every video clip of her sneaking around my property. And the more she pushed, the more the neighbors started to notice something they hadn't before. That maybe Karen wasn't the protector of the neighborhood she claimed to be. Maybe she was the problem. And I'll admit, there was a part of me that almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because she had no idea what was coming next. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to turn the entire neighborhood against her. And when the moment came, she wouldn't just lose. She'd lose everything. The funny thing about bullies, they always think fear equals respect. For years, Karen thrived on that illusion. People didn't like her. They just didn't want to be her next target. But the trash can fiasco? That changed everything. It started small. A neighbor I barely knew, Mark from 2 doors down, caught me in the driveway one evening. He lowered his voice, glancing around like we were in some spy movie. Hey, saw the video. My wife and I always knew she was off her rocker, but man, you actually caught her. Then he leaned closer. If you ever need someone to back you up, you've got us. That was the first domino. Pretty soon, the whispers spread. At the mailbox cluster, people traded stories. Karen's nasty letters. The way she'd berated kids for riding scooters on the sidewalk. The time she reported an elderly neighbor's garden gnome as an illegal lawn ornament. Everyone had their own version of the same story, Karen's reign of terror. And for the first time, people weren't just whispering in fear. They were laughing, united by the absurdity. Meanwhile, I kept feeding the fire. Not publicly. Oh no, I played it cool. But when someone asked, I didn't hide the footage. Here, take a look. A quick clip on my phone, Karen in her robe caught red-handed with the trash can, the siren blaring in the background. Every person who saw it shook their head, half in disbelief, half in delight. The shift was undeniable. Instead of siding with her neighbors, started ignoring her complaints. Some even pushed back. When she stormed over to yell at the Johnson kids for chalk, drawings on the sidewalk, Mrs. Johnson told her to mind her own business. When she tried to threaten old Mr. Patel about his bird feeder, he waved her off like a mosquito. Karen could feel it. The power slipping. The eyes turning. She doubled down, stomping door to door with petitions, demanding signatures to fine me, to expel me, to paint me as the dangerous outsider. But the more she shouted, the quieter the neighborhood grew. People stopped opening their doors, stopped answering her calls, and some of them, this was my favorite part, started waving at me, smiling, checking in, like I'd somehow become the rallying point in a war. Nobody realized they were already fighting. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. And I knew exactly how to seal the deal. Because the next HOA meeting, that was going to be the stage. The whole neighborhood. Karen in the spotlight. And me holding the receipts. This wasn't just about a trash can anymore. It was about finally ending Karen's grip on the entire community. The night of the HOA meeting felt like stepping into a theater. The folding chairs were packed. Every neighbor squeezed in murmurs, bouncing off the walls. You could feel the tension before the meeting even started. Like everyone knew tonight was going to be different. And front and center, sitting at the head table with her arms crossed, like some tyrant queen, was Karen. Her lips pressed into a thin, smug line, eyes flicking toward me every few seconds, like she was already planning her victory speech. The meeting kicked off with the usual boring stuff: budget, updates, landscaping contracts, pool, maintenance. But nobody cared. Everyone was just waiting for the storm. And sure enough, Karen was the one to light the fuse. She stood up, smoothed her blouse, and launched into her tirade. "This community is under attack," she declared, voice sharp, enough to slice through the room. "We have individuals," she jabbed a finger in my direction, "who are installing unauthorized surveillance, violating the sanctity of our neighborhood, and creating a hostile environment for decent families." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some folks rolled their eyes. Others glanced at me. I stayed quiet, calm, waiting. Karen wasn't done. She slapped a stack of papers onto the table. "I've documented over a dozen violations. Trash bins, decor, landscaping, noise disturbances, you name it. This man is a menace, and if we don't act now, our community will spiral into chaos." That's when I stood. I didn't raise my voice, didn't shout. I just held up my phone and pressed play. The screen lit up with the footage, clear as day. Karen in her robe tipping my trash can. The siren blaring, her flailing in the floodlights, her face twisting as she shouted, "This is harassment." The room erupted, gasps, laughter. A couple of neighbors actually clapped. Karen's face went scarlet. "That video is illegal! It's manipulated!" But the damage was done. Everyone had seen the truth. I didn't stop there. I pulled out the stack of letters she'd had delivered to my door. Since when does the HOA fine someone for having gray paint on their front door? Or for bird feeders? Or for sidewalk chalk? I fanned the papers out like a deck of cards. This isn't about rules. This is about control. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One cleared his throat. "Karen, these fines. These weren't approved by us." You could feel the shift. The power draining right out of her. Neighbors who once nodded in silence now spoke up. "She threatened my kid for riding his bike. She trespassed on my lawn to measure my grass. She tried to get my dog banned." One by one, the stories poured out. Years of pent-up frustration finally unleashed. And Karen? She was drowning. Her voice cracked as she tried to regain control, shouting over the crowd. "You're all ungrateful. I've kept this neighborhood in order. Without me, this place will fall apart." But nobody believed her anymore. The board chair finally raised his hand. "That's enough. Effective immediately, Karen, you are barred from representing the HOA in any capacity. And as for these violations, they're void. All of them." The room erupted again. Relief, applause, smiles. And for the first time since I moved in the neighborhood, didn't feel like Karen's kingdom. It felt like ours. Karen stood there, trembling eyes darting from face to face, realizing her empire had just crumbled in front of everyone. She grabbed her purse, stormed out, and slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. And just like that, the reign of Karen was over. Or so I thought. Because if I knew one thing about Karen, it was this: she'd rather go down swinging than admit defeat.